So I think this is going to be a general component of disease susceptibility that we really haven't thought about. So these ancestral exposures is something we need to start paying attention to. And we need to be conscientious about it for our future generations.
Dr. Skinner does some very interesting research on epigenetics and mutation, and recently some research on glyphosate. Dr. Skinner, what can you tell us about epigenetics?
Everybody understands what genetics is. That's your basic DNA sequence. It's thought for a long time, for over 100 years, that it would drive pretty much all of biology, just the sequence. So it turns out that's not incorrect, but it's not complete. There's this whole other part of molecular control of the DNA that's called epigenetics. And those are things around the DNA, chemical modifications, small molecules and things, that actually interact with the DNA to turn genes on and off. It's not necessarily the sequence that actually does that. It's actually the epigenetics that allows a gene to be told whether you're going to be on or off. And so it turns out that genetics in the DNA sequence is a really important part of biology. But this other part is called epigenetics that we really didn't previously pay attention to, but probably is equally important to regulate how the DNA functions.
So now, with this epigenetics, what are we looking at in terms of environmental hazards that could affect our health and maybe our children or grandchildren?
Two things you need to think about is, when you get, as an adult, exposed to something, we are fairly established biologically. The genes in all the cells are sort of on or off correctly, and it's really hard to change it. So as adults, we're very resistant to most environmental sort of influences to change us, okay? But early in life, particularly as a fetus, early after birth called postnatal, or even during puberty, many of the organ systems in your body are developing, and there's a cascade of epigenetic changes that normally occur. And if the environment comes in and shifts that cascade a little bit, then the end result is the adult has a shift, which can give you a disease susceptibility, a different trait, and so forth. So you have to think about environmental impacts more on the early developmental periods as being far more critical than as adults. So if you're a fetus developing, most organs are developing during fetal development. So that's the time that it's the most dramatic effects on the organism that will eventually develop from that fetus. And those will be the major things that affect disease susceptibility, all those traits and so forth. So if an environmental chemical comes on, impacts a pregnant gestating female, the fetus, it's not the female that's really going to be the problem. It's the fetus that develops. And later in life, you don't often see it right up front, but later in life, when diseases start to develop, then they have a susceptibility to develop a series of disease. So what we're exposed to during early development is really what determines our disease condition when we get later in life.
So Dr. Skinner, I want to thank you for coming and joining us today. It's been an honor to talk to you. And thank you for joining us here today on X Connect Northwest.